and we have what's called a frequency distribution summary. And this happens a lot when you have, lost my ink pen here. It happens a lot when we have large data sets with a lot of repeated measures. Now, something that would be a lot of repeated measures would be maybe age of students at Shawnee State, because we're going to have a lot of students who are 18, a lot of students who are 19, a lot of students who are 20, probably not so many that are 42. But we're going to have a lot of ages where we have a lot of repeated measures. GPAs, probably not, because 2.12, 3.37, we round GPAs typically to the hundredths position, so the chance that you have the same GPA as someone else at Shawnee, and it's probably going to happen, but there's not going to be a lot of repeated measures. The number of cars a family owns, the number of kids, number of children, those kinds of things have a lot of repeated measures. So let's say, for example, that there is a large stats class, and they took a 10-point quiz. I'll tell you what, let's keep this simple. Took a 5-point quiz, and we have the following summary. So we have scores ranging from 0 to 5. And let's say that we had 7 students get a 0, 15 students get a 1, 23 students get a 2, 29 students get a 3, 35 students get a 4, and 52 students get a 5. I want to be optimistic here and have, assuming 5 is a better score, which would make sense, it would be. I want to have 52 students, okay? So this is an example of a frequency distribution. And there's a problem like this on your homework assignments, so this is the main reason I want to cover this, to show you how to handle those two problems. Now, this is equivalent to, if we do a thought box here, this is equivalent to writing out the data in extended form of 0, 0, 0. Okay, I'll stop. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 zeros. Pretend I did this 15 times. Pretend I did this 23 times. And pretend I wrote these 52 times. So I wrote 52 5s, 15 1s, 23 2s, and so on and so forth. So I would have a large data set, but instead of the redundancy of writing these things out, again, of writing 52 5s and 35 4s, we can use a frequency distribution, which is kind of a natural way to handle this, okay? And again, we have a lot of repeated measures. We don't have many scores, but the scores we do have were repeated quite a bit. So, guys, it turns out this is really easy to handle in your calculator. Let me show you how you do that. Go to Stat and go to Edit. And the first thing we want to do is we want to clear out, so go clear, enter, the information that's there. Now, we're going to need 2 lists for this. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in list 1. And in list 2, I'm going to list the frequencies. So 0 occurred 7 times, 1 occurred 15 times, 2 occurred 23 times, 3 occurred 29 times, 4 occurred 35 times, and 5 occurred 52 times. Now, you got to think about L1 and L2 are now merged. They're now married, right? They're not getting divorced. They can't be separated. If we just look at L1 independent of L2, then 0 occurs 1 time, 1 occurs 1 time, 2 occurs 1 time, 3 occurs once, and so on and so forth. But to tell the calculator that 0 occurs 7 times, how many times this number occurs has to be found from the information of L2. Well, guys, it turns out this is really easy to do. You just go over to Calc, one variable stats, and you go L1, and your frequency list, you go second function 2, L2. So you tell the calculator where the frequency list is just by putting the list beside a frequency list. Come down, hit calculate, hit enter. You'll see the average score was 3.40. The standard deviation was 1.51. There were 161 students. Really large statistics course. That's back my days at UK, the kind of algebra courses I used to teach there. You can see that the median is 4, Q1 is 2, Q3 is 5. The range is 5, and the IQR is 3. 5 minus 2. Okay, so works out really, really, really nicely to be able to work a frequency distribution like this. Now, an application of this would be calculating your grades. Let's say, for example, that you took 5 courses. And you have an A, a B, and a D. Well, what you could do here, and let's say that these are all 3-hour courses. So we can say that our grade, we have 2 A's, 2 B's, and 1 D. Well, guys, we can't go A plus B divided by 3, but we have quality points like this. So in our calculator, guys, I'm going to show the other calculator now for those of you that don't have the same calculator operating system. So in this one, we would go to Stat, Edit, clear out the old stuff. So I'm going to go 4, 3, 1, and I have 2, 2, 1. Now, to do this, I'm going to go to Stat, and I'm going to go over to Calc, and I'm going to do one variable Stat, but I don't come up like I did before where I have a frequency line. So what you have to do here is you have to hit the left parentheses, go L1, comma, L2, right parentheses. This communicates to your calculator, if you have this operating system, that you have your frequencies in L1 and I'm sorry, your scores in L1, your frequencies in L2. And you'll see that we get 3 and the standard deviation is 1.22. So your GPA would be 3.00 and your standard deviation will be 1.22. Going back to the other, if we're doing it over here, just run through it real quickly, edit, Clear out this. Clear out this. Stat, calc, one variable stats, L1, L2, and hit calculate. You guys, you get the same thing. Okay. So no wackiness that goes on with R, where it calculates quartiles 8,700 different ways. The calculator is consistent. Now let's go into a future problem. Next problem just has, all right, you've got 7 numbers, 23, 32, 56, 41, 92, 85, and 20. Okay? And you want to find the standard deviation of those numbers. Stat, calc, one variable stats. We put our numbers in L1. But guys, now we don't have a frequency distribution, do we? We just have numbers like we had before. So just hit clear, calculate, and you're right back where you started from. So if you don't have frequencies in L2, then you don't put a list beside of frequencies. If you do, it'll give you, I call it the, well, I'm not going to tell you what I call it.